Hello, 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 my amazing artists. I'm so excited for you guys to start your very first virtual lesson with art for the 2020 school year. Today, we're going to be starting with our elements of art. So every single week, we're going to be doing a new element of art. The elements of art are so important. They're the basis of every single thing that we do in art. You guys use your elements of art all the time, and you may not even know it. So today we're going to start with the very first element of art, which is line. A line is something that starts in one point and keeps going until it reaches another point. So in this case, we're going to be starting on one end of the paper and we're going to be going all the way till the other end of the paper. So today we're going to be making line art landscapes. A landscape is an image of someplace outside. Easy enough, right? If you take a photo of someplace in your backyard, or if you're on a hike, or if you're in a really cool place out in nature, that's a landscape. Lots of people paint landscapes. They take photos of landscapes. They even make collages out of landscapes. Today, we're going to be making landscapes out of lines. They're not just going to be straight lines, they're just going to be curved and zigzags and wavy babies and loopy doopies and walkarounds and sharks and vertical and horizontal and diagonal and crazy lines. You can use any type of line you want, and I'll show you all these different lines to help you out too. So here's an example of a photo of a landscape. If you look at this, lots of mountains, right? But do you see the lines in the mountains? Let's look. Here's one that starts on the edge and it goes all the way across to the other edge. Now that's a zigzag line and it makes the top of a mountain. Is that the only line you see? No, there's another line over here and another one across the top. Lots of zigzag lines to make up the tops of mountains. But it's not just the mountains that are made out of lines. If you look at the sun right here, this is a curved line. And that's what the sun is, a curved line in the shape of a circle. Here's another example of a photo of a landscape. So here, you see lots of lines. If you follow the cursor at the top, you see that there is a big zigzag line across the top that goes way down below and then back up. And again, that makes the top of a mountain. Now the trees, they're all individual trees, but if you follow the tops of the trees, they make a line, a really jagged zigzag line, right? And they go all the way across. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to make different types of lines to create mountains and trees and rivers and oceans and suns. And we're going to make them out of lines that go from one end of the paper all the way until the other end of the paper. Okay, so we've got mountains, we've got trees, we've got some more trees that make more lines, we've got a little river action, and that's another line all the way across. Okay, so here is an example of one of the landscapes that you can create. So we have a bunch of different lines over here. We have some curved lines that go up and down, and they are repeated over and over again to make trees. We have a spiral line inside the sun. We have some wavy lines that go all the way across the screen, and those are the lines that you guys are going to be starting with. Lines that go from one side of your paper to the other side of your paper. We have some wavy lines, some super duper wavy lines, some zigzag lines down here that go all the way across. And see how this wavy line is different than all of the other wavy lines? So even if you have one wavy line or one type of line, it doesn't have to look exactly the same as the line that you just made. So what they did was they started with the lines in the center, and they did all of those from one side to the other. Then they added the curved lines at the top. And then, once they were done with all of that, they came back in and they did their spirals. and all of their little details that they added, like these flowers, or I think they might be cactuses. So what we're going to be doing is creating our lines that start from one side and go all the way to the other. We're going to fill up the page with that to create the base of our landscape. And then we're going to go back in and add details like the cacti and these dots and lines within the trees. So that's one example that you could do. Another example of a landscape, this one is a ocean landscape. The one that we just looked at before, this one is of a grassy landscape. Okay, so for this ocean landscape, they use lots of wave lines. So these lines look just like waves. And then they added some curved lines to make big lines that turned into spiral lines. For the mountain, just like in the photos we saw, it's one zigzag line that goes up and down all the way across the page. For the sun, they did a big curved line, and then they added in straight lines for the sun rays. Once they finished adding all their lines, they went back in and added details like in the mountain and in the spirally waves. So that's what you'll be doing too. They also colored it. See how they colored the mountains, the color of a mountain would be? The sun, the color of the sun during a sunset maybe. The ocean is blue because that's the color of the ocean. So I want you to be thinking of the colors that you see outside in your landscape that you'll be creating. Here's another example, kind of similar to the last one. So we have a curved line for the sun, some loop-de-doop-dees for the ocean, some wavy lines for the ocean over here too. And then they went back in and they added spirals and more loop-de-doop-dees down here and some stripes over here. I want you to think of as many different types of lines that you can, and you can create your landscape with them. All right, my amazing artists. First, we're going to start by writing our name in pencil on one side of our paper. We can even do a smiley face if you want. Then we're going to flip the paper over. I am so excited for this lesson, and I'm so excited for you guys to do it too. It's our very first virtual lesson. To begin, we're going to start by drawing a dot halfway through the page on either end. So I drew two dots, one on one side halfway through and the other on the other side. See how my page is long ways and not up and down? Now I chose a zigzag line and I did it from one end of the dot to the other end of the dot. Now I'm choosing another line. This one is a wavy line. I started from one end of the paper all the way to the other. You can do your dots if you want, or if you feel like you got the hang of it, you can just start making your lines, but just make sure they start on one end of the paper to the other. So I'm adding in all different lines. Do you see how they all go from one side to the other? You're going to keep on doing that until your entire page is filled. And then I want you to take a black marker, a black crayon, a black colored pencil, any dark tool you have to outline your lines. See how I'm not coloring them in? I'm taking my time, although this video is sped up a bit. I'm taking my time though. I'm tracing over every line that I made in pencil. And I'm tracing over it with my Sharpie. Okay, like I said again, you can use a black crayon, you can use a black colored pencil, and you can use a black marker. Now I'm going to go through every single line that I just made, and I'm going to outline them. This is going to make sure that our landscape pops. So I did every single line that I drew, and they all go across the page. Now that I'm done outlining, I'm going to put my cap back on my marker, and I'm going to start adding in details with my pencil. I'm using my pencil and not my marker because I might want to erase something, and I can't erase it if I have it in marker or crayon or colored pencil. So I just added in some snowy caps to my mountains because I want those to be nice and cold mountains. So now I drew them in my pencil. I'm going to outline them in my Sharpie. Again, I'm not coloring them in. I'm not scribbling. I'm taking my time. Okay? Now I'm going to add in more details. So those are going to be my trees. So a tree needs a tree trunk. So I'm adding in more lines to make my tree trunks. Two thin lines next to each other make a beautiful tree trunk, in my opinion. I made them in pencil. Now I'm going to outline them in marker. And again, not coloring them in. I'm going to add a little bit of branches to my trees just to make them a little bit more fun. You can add more details into your landscapes too. Does not have to look like my landscape. In fact, I'd love it if it looked a little bit different. So my landscape is going to be a nice sunny day with a nice sprinkling of clouds. So I'm going to add cloud details, and once I'm done with that, I'm going to start coloring. I chose colored pencil. You can choose crayon or marker. I just had colored pencils on me. So these are my trees. So I'm going to color them in like they're trees. So I'm doing green and I'm doing spirals. Notice how I'm staying inside the lines. And this video is sped up, just so you know. So I'm taking my time, even though it doesn't look like it. I'm taking my time. I'm not scribbling. I'm drawing inside the lines. I'm making sure that the entire section is filled with color before I move to the next shape that I did. So remember, those are mountains. So I'm making them nice purple mountains because they're all far away. Are mountains usually purple? Absolutely not. You can make them whatever color you'd like. I like to think that purple is a really fun color for mountains because if you look at them far away, it kind of looks like they're purple. So that's why I chose purple. So I did my trees. I did my tree trunks. I did my mountains. Now I'm going to do my water. See how those lines look like water ripples? I did that on purpose. Okay. Now I'm coloring that in blue because the water is blue. I'm going to add in some detail with maybe a darker blue just so you can see the difference between the waves in front and the waves behind. Colored in my sun. Now lastly, I got to color in my sky. Again, this is sped up. I am not coloring this fast. That is not possible. But I am making sure that I stay within the lines. I'm taking my time when I get to the edges so that I don't color in the edges. I'm not scribbling. I'm not pressing too hard on my colored pencil. And I'm making sure that the entire sky is filled with color. So now I colored everything in. I'm going to go back in and add some details. So I'm adding a lighter green in my trees because I think that that would make it look pretty. I'm going to add some flowers in. And once I'm done with that, I'm all done with my line landscape. Ta-da!